You will all probably have your own thoughts on that. If you think about it, when we're looking at transition programs, things where something is going to change, what we're looking to do is we're looking to help people work out where it is that they need to go to and to get there in the quickest time, and to make sure when they get there it's the right place to be. Now, in the current world where things are changing, we talk about VUCA world, so volatile, uncertain, complex, and I can't remember what A stands for, but lots of things are changing. So when we go into these programs, the one thing you know is that it's not always clear where you're going to end up. So the job of leadership is to do two things. One is to work out where is it we need to go and help people to work that out, and then it is to get there. And you can call that do the right things and do them right. Now, that's very easy to say, and it's quite hard to do, particularly when the world is changing around you. And it's all about people. It's all about helping people to behave in the right ways. So leadership is a very people-focused thing. If you look at what's been happening around the world with the current pandemic, and you look at the way the leadership in different countries have behaved, first of all, you notice some things. One is that there is generally a leader who is the focal point, but they have a team of people around them. And so leadership is not just vested in one person, it lies within a group of people. In fact, leadership can lie anywhere within a program of work. We all have the capability to be leaders, in the sense that we all have the capability to help others to work out what do we need to do and then do it. So how do you become a good leader? What is it that we teach? Some people think that to be a leader you need to know what you have to do and to tell others how to do it. That's quite a restricted way of thinking about things. Nobody has all of the knowledge, all of the ability to make things happen. So what good leaders are about is enabling people to give of their best. So leadership is very much around motivating people to want to change their behaviors, giving them the skills to be able to change their behaviors, guiding them and helping them to make a transition effective. So how do you do that? I think that the way you do that is by being very honest about the fact that you know very little. We always like to think that we know stuff. And when we do big programs of work, when you read about programs and projects that have gone wrong, okay, it's always we had a plan, we had a budget, and you spent more money than you said you were going to, and we're late. And that's because people like certainty, but it's an uncertain world. So one of our jobs as leaders is to help people become comfortable with the fact that we can never know, because the world is too complex, and work out how we have to be in order to be able to address that complexity and that uncertainty. So agility is part of it, certainly. Curiosity is a big part of it for me. Always asking questions. What is it that we're missing? What is it that we don't know? And then the final part of it is looking at the people around you and asking yourself, what do I need to do as a leader in order for these people to give of their best? Call it servant leadership, if you like. It's not about commanding and controlling. It's about enabling and coaching and facilitating. So as a leader of others, you have to be very people focused, and you have to be focused on yourself as well. You have to be self-aware. You have to know what you're good at, and you have to know where your weak points are, because none of us is perfect. So leadership, I think, in the modern world is quite a humble thing to aspire to. It's not powerful, although it can empower people. It's not dictatorial. It's not command and control. It's a humble state where you as a leader are enabling others to give of their best. And you do that through curiosity, and you do that through a focus on what it is that others need from you in order to be able to do what they need to do. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mike. You've already started our discussion, our debate, so we can smoothly move to the debate on what's What is to be a leader of others for processes of significant transitional change in VUCA world? It's a complicated question. It's complex. Maybe we start, we have invited, as I said before, we have invited lecturers. We've got a guest, Raji, and we've got also graduates, and we want all to debate. And you are welcome to ask the questions as well. You can ask the questions on Facebook, and you can answer. The questions on Facebook will be answered later on in the end. But you can also hear people who are on Zoom, please ask questions during the debate. So we've got a few questions. I have prepared a few questions for debate participants, but we are happy to answer your questions. So any questions you have, just write them down and put to the chat, please. So I will be checking the chat and give the questions to the participants, and we will try to answer them. So let's start. Mike, you have recently written a really interesting article which has been published in Strefa PMI. You can download the edition. You can read the article. The article is in English. And you mentioned there some examples of good leaders who manage the crisis situations well. So if you can tell us, what do they have in common? Is it something different they have to other leaders?
Well, it must be.
Sorry.
If you look around the world, you will see that some countries have managed the current pandemic better than others. And that's better in the sense of impact on health, public health, but also on the economy and society as well. So it's quite a complex problem. And I decided this is too good an opportunity to miss. So, you know, by looking at the newspapers and looking at the news reports to see who was doing this well and who was doing this not so well. Now, of course, I choose the newspapers that I read. So I tend to read newspapers that reflect my values and beliefs, which means I get a particular view of the world. So one of the things I've tried to do is to read newspapers and look for other news sources that are coming from a different place from where I am. Whether you're looking at right-wing or left-wing newspapers or whatever, to get a different view on how things are. Now, one of the things that's come through is that there are some leaders who have done very well. The obvious example being in New Zealand, where Jacinda Ardern, a female leader, and that may not be a coincidence, her country managed the pandemic so far very well. They've kept the number of cases down to a very small number, the number of deaths down to a very small number. And although it's not all plain sailing, and they are seeing some signs of the pandemic coming back, you know, they've done a good job. And how did they do that? One of the things that if you look in the leadership material dealing with the crisis, one of the things that good leaders do is they notice when something is happening. So as human beings, we tend to be optimists. We tend to hope for the best. So when we start to see something happening that's going to cause us to have to change, we have a tendency to think it's going to be okay, and therefore not to act. Now, what some leaders do, and what Jacinda Ardern did, she saw that very early on. So whereas New Zealand locked down very quickly and very hard, other countries, my own in the UK included, took a less aggressive view and were trying to avoid having to take drastic action. Now, the consequence of that is that when you do have to take it, it's not as effective, and the problem becomes worse. So one of the things that I found through reading the reports and the literature around this is that there's a quality of a leader that is perhaps courage, the willingness to say, this looks like it could be really bad, so I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it in the knowledge that I may actually be acting too hard. And if I am, I would accept the consequences. But if I'm not wrong, then we are going to have a better chance of managing it. So courage, empathy with the people. Jacinda is a very good communicator. Her messages are clear, direct, and people understand them. And she engages people so they want to follow what she's doing. So if you think about that, there's qualities of empathy, there's qualities of courage, there's qualities of decision making, there's qualities that surround her with a good team. All of these things come together to make a good leader. You may have your own views. You know, all of us have been affected by what's going on at the moment, and we can certainly look at examples like in the UK and in the US where the leadership there has been, shall we say, not as good as elsewhere, in that the messaging has been complex, the leadership behaviours. When you're a leader, people will do what you do. So if you don't commit to certain actions, then you can't expect others to follow. I think that's all I want to say at the moment. But the message you get, it's the personal qualities of the leader, the way they behave, but there are some key messages there around being very clear and concise. And if you don't know, being very clear that you don't know, and be very clear that we're going to take some chances, and if it doesn't work, we will try something else.
Thank you, Mike. So maybe you mentioned lady leaders, so maybe I pass the question to Raji. Raji, if you can tell a few words about you and then answer the question, what's the role of a leader in these turbulent times, in times of crisis, in the VUCA world? What's your view?
So Mike said leaders follow, or rather followers are following the leaders. So I'm going to say I totally agree with you, because leaders need to lead by example. And because I want to show you something which I think it really resonates with what we're talking about right now, at least what I believe in, that leaders need to be the example. Let me share this with you just a second. I think for people who say, it's not my job, I think you may have seen this before, but I really think it's worth seeing it again. For people who say it's not my job, here it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
I really think that says it all. I really do think it says it all. So because I feel very strongly about how leaders should be, and leaders need to lead by example, I think when a black swan arrives, which is in this case COVID, or it can be anything, to Mike's point about decision making, I'd say centralized decision making is something that we need to take on, rather than people making decisions on their own when it's a norm, because that decision makers become paralyzed when you think of out of the norm. So we need to define the non-negotiables. There are certain things that is non-negotiable. We got to do it. We got to do it. There's no other choice. And then switching gears and becoming a situational leader is what I think beats VUCA. And in my mind, how to beat VUCA is by taking the 4 letters V, U, C, and A and becoming vigilant, understanding, caring, and accepting. Meaning, you're not going to have any more ivory towers. Everything needs to be led from the bottom up to the top. Like Mike said, there is no one leader. Everybody is a leader, and you need to ask people what it is that you think we can do. And one of the things that I do and speak about, I'm a speaker in Speaker Hub, and the topic and the theme that I speak about in Speaker Hub is interdisciplinary correlations, which is connecting disciplines across the board. So I like, in my own teams, I like to place people in different functions, verticals, geography. The reason I do this on a normal basis, not just in the VUCA world, is because when there is a VUCA situation, then you transform yourself to whatever it is that you want, because you know how to be in the shoes of another person, which we talk about in our model as well, we have in my model as well. And also I believe in trust, and I know that Gosha always talks about trust, and there is something called a return on trust, which actually you can measure, and there are videos about it, etc., etc. And there is BPIs that I also use, which is the business performance indicators. Now, you can't lead without contradictions, which is something that leaders need to understand, at least in my mind, but that needs to be dealt with in a very glacial way. And sometimes you have to be the oddity to transform, meaning dealing with unconscious bias, for example, and sometimes diversity. I know somebody talked about diversity today, and for me, when I'm recruiting people, this is my thought. I would love to hear you guys, what you think about it. In my mind, diversity is all fine. You can have all the quotas, you can have all the gender and everything else. But if I have 10 people that I need to interview and take 3 people out of it and have them placed in certain jobs, I'd look for talent. I mean, just because you have this diversity thing going on, or you have, you know, the gender thing going on, I'd really like to have the talent and I'd like to take it. And these are all things that we can use, in my mind, in this uncertain world. And of course, the resilient leadership, and then the, you know, I always say target for promptness over style during these times. And the integrity of the leaders really tested very, very hard, and they're scrutinized by the followers. So good leadership is not just about producing results at all costs, but it's also about whether the results will benefit the teams that deal with them, or team that deals with them. So the leader will have to please all the stakeholders. And it's also about the cost of action and inaction. I mean, there is no point of doing just the action alone. You need to look into the inaction as well. I mean, I can give you example for all of these in my industry, but what I'd like to do now, instead of taking all the time that Gosha has given, I'd like to ask the other panelists, what other lens should we put on? What is your lens that you're going to put on for us to be dealing with this for a futuristic transformation? Over to you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Raji. So who is brave enough to answer Raji's question and then to continue on the leadership nowadays?
God, did I sound that scary, Gosha?
Yes, I don't know. We will see. How are you happy?
I can. So, like lenses, that's a good question. So
just introduce yourself. Just a few words about you.
I'm Michał Rączka, and I'm IT director at mBank, and I'm a lecturer at Transition Manager Academy. So, in short words, and I'm into new technologies, digital leadership, that kind of things, and passionate about the project management because it's the way how to deliver our goals and KPIs and DPIs and etc. And yeah, taking on Raji's lenses. Yeah, so Mike and Raji, you covered this human part, and I really yeah, this is for sure, and it was and it will be very valid point, and we need to be open and master our human part. Like human competences, and but recently when you could read an article from World Economic Forum, they said that the future is about, I mean, near future, whatever we can predict. Not talking about the black swan. So whatever we can predict for the future. So there are like 2 main competences. Like one is human, and second one is digital. And so about human, most of the thing was like we already said. Yeah, for me, human is kind of, and I like this topic, and most of you know that I like the topic of personal agility. That it's all about it. You talk about like trust, like everything what we've covered so far. It's in my mind, it can be bundled in personal agility as a concept of us, as a way to develop ourselves, as a way to know ourselves better. So this is all about, and as Raji mentioned, yeah, we discovered, like we researched a kind of model how to master this personal agility, how to find in yourself what does it mean personal agility. So maybe it will be time later on to talk about it more. But this digital thing, I would like to talk about. I would like to refocus your lenses on this. For the coming years, this will be the main topic. I mean, how to live, how to manage, how to lead in this digital world, and it is happening like suddenly happened. For example, schools, online schooling. So this is huge thing happened in 1 week. I mean, for example, in Poland, and suddenly we need to master how to give a knowledge, how to give experience to young people, to other people through the like digital lenses, without this human personal touch. So that is why we need to really master how to connect, how to find the right balance between human and digital competences. And as maybe you can see, but most of the money around the world, I mean, most of the value around the world is going to be made through the digital lenses, and that is why this kind of really important and crucial competence, how to have something like digital imagination, this how to imagine how to use technology in our favors, in order to lead people, in order to show them example, in order to give them experience and like feelings. This is like huge topic. I'm totally losers in this. I mean, it's really coming. I can see it, and for the next years, this is a topic I need to, for example, myself, I need to master it, and I guess a lot of people must master it as well. So, just talking about lenses, human, yes, and digital.
Thank you very much, Michał, for your really inspiring insight. So who else, maybe from students, from graduates, maybe Paweł, you want to add something on the topic of leadership, or to answer Raji's question as well?
Yeah, so hello everybody. As Małgorzata mentioned, I had the pleasure to attend the Transition Manager Academy, so I'm very happy to see the lectures again. Regarding the leadership in the permanent change environment, as I work as an interim manager, I just always work in the very, let's say, unstable and unpredictable environment. So what I could observe, what is very important if you want to succeed, all of us, we know that change means risks. And risks, they bring threats, but also they bring opportunities. So I think it's very, very important to look for opportunities and capitalize on them. When the question is how to find these opportunities, then it's very important to learn to listen to your teams, to your people, and of course ask the right questions. And this is exactly how the course of transition management was maintained. That during the course, the lecturers were trying to listen to us. They try to understand what are we talking about. So don't only go through the let's say presentations which were prepared in advance, or the exercises. Of course, everything was prepared in detail, but there was no how to say program that had to be passed and that's it. No, there was very, let's say program which was prepared for the current situation. So there was a great interaction, and the same I also recommend for all the leaders to try to apply in practice. Another thing I think which is very, very important during the change is to be present and to be accessible to your teams. And it's not only maybe your, let's say, subordinates, your teams, but also your colleagues and also your bosses, just to be available and to communicate very quickly, also to make things, to react, to understand what is going on. And this is again my experience from the course on the transition management. From the very beginning till now, I can see that we can have contacts, we can interact, we can share our experience and still learn. So I think this is also another important feature of the leaders in the changing world. So this is all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe Ania, you would like to add something on your view of leadership today?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Szczepkowska. I'm an architect, but not working in my profession. I've been a visual practitioner for 5 years. It's a new profession in Poland, and I do a lot of things. I'm a trainer, running visual workshops. Also here on Kozminski University, I have this pleasure, thanks to Małgorzata Kusyk. I also make some whiteboard animations or some graphics, the graphic recording and graphic facilitation, which is a great competition also for leaders, because as Mike Rawlings said, the leader should be a coach, a facilitator, and I would like to mention that here, that visualization helps a lot to see a big picture, to think, to see other perspectives of other people, because if the leader draws something out of his head or her and try to ask some questions, because if we draw something and we look at it, the questions are just coming up, and the group who can think about it can give their input, and it is really a great tool, in my opinion, to be used by leaders also. What else I would like to say? I think that the contemporary leader in this VUCA world should, of course, should have those human and digital skills. What Michał Rączka said, I agree completely with that. And we all know that those human skills are being trustworthy, for example, because it enables to build a relationship based on trust, which is for me the most effective way to lead people. Just to make them, to attract them to ourselves. So be a leader which attracts people to himself, not pushing or pulling them beside him. What else? I think that contemporary leader should also be resilient. What Raji said, it is a very important skill and a feature. Resilient because we don't know what will happen. Those are times of uncertainty, and this resilience really is necessary, I think. Also being innovative, thinking outside the box, being, of course, creative to make different solutions, and courage is also very important. What also Mike Rawlings, I guess, said, if I remember correctly, because this courage make the leader to decide properly, maybe even if this decision is hard, but with this courage he has, I think the leader can make the best of them. Also, I think what else I would like to mention that Raji showed us this bear who did his job, and it is also a visual picture, because visuals are all not only made by drawing, but also everything what is visual. So, for example, movies, and just you know how it affected you. I think that our words don't affect us so deeply as images, for example, because if we see some visual metaphors, for example, like with this bear. It is really a consciousness building thing, and only if we are aware of something, we become aware of something, we can change something. So in this VUCA world where there are a lot of changes and we have to be really open for those changes, so visuals can help you become aware more quickly, and I think that the decisions can be made faster. So it is. I think it is a very good thing, good skill, which everyone can have and can learn, because it is for everyone. And the other thing, the last maybe I would like to say that it is open-mindedness. So. People who have open mind can know their talents, can cope with failures, know that mistakes are not bad, are good, and we can grow with them. People open for development, for self-development, can be good leaders in these times. And of course, about drawing, I could talk and talk. But I think not this time. And this is, I guess this is all I wanted to say. And of course, one more thing, because I think that the good leader should be a happy person. So let's not forget about our self-satisfaction and happiness, because if we work on it, and if we are happy, I think we can be better for other people to lead them. And I wish you all lots of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. There's a saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And it's a very complex word where our problems are really complex. To solve them, we need a kind of simplification. Yeah? So that's why it's very, very crucial. So if you would like to practice, because visual thinking is about practicing, it's not about talking. So you can join our session tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Yes.
Anya will teach us how to draw, and then she will move us through some problem-solving techniques using visualization. We will try to go through the retrospective. So there will be 5 steps of retrospectives, 5 tools or even more, using the sketchnoting, the graphic designing. So please join us if you want to practice. So thank you very much, Anya, for sharing your view.
Thank you.
Maybe I ask any questions from the audience. Please type your questions to the chat, and I will ask the questions. That's what we all would like to answer, your questions. So maybe while we're waiting for other questions, maybe we can still continue on the good leadership, but maybe we can hear some stories, because we know from graduates, we are in touch to be present. It's very important to be present, and relationship as well. So maybe Marcin, you can share with us your view on leadership and your story as well. You are on mute, Marcin. Your microphone is not working.
Right now? Is it okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe introduce yourself, a few words about you and then your view.
My name is Marcin Tomczyk. I'm the senior project manager at InPost right now, and I had the honor to be the student of the first edition of Transitional Manager Academy. It was a great opportunity, and I was very glad that such kind of studies was created because I was looking for something more than project management and something which will touch not only details of some tasks or activities within the projects, but overall strategy and goals of the organization connected with those projects together. So all activities of the organization or of the company was important for me, because at this time I was in the role of the management board proxy, acting as office manager. So I had to manage different tasks at once. It was project management, human resources management, and client relations, and also business development. So it was a complex task which required me to be focused on future goals, not only gaining and achieving tasks assigned to me these days. So my story related to Transitional Manager Academy was connected directly with InPost, because I was looking for something for more challenges in my career, and I was looking for a bigger company to work with, to learn more and spread my and work with more people than in smaller organization I was previously. And what I've seen very interesting in these studies and in the skills I achieved during the studies was that leadership is very important, not only on the top management level, but also on at every level of the organization. Everyone from the team members could be a leader, even if you are team leader of few engineers or small part of the project. You have impact on future of your organization, and you have impact on everything which is related to how your company works, how your company is performing us, because this is like complex organization is related to everything which is going in your company or in your business. So if you are focused only on your goals, which were assigned to you, like your tasks, your projects, it's in my opinion is insufficient, because people should understand why they are working and what's the purpose of their work. So what we hear from Małgorzata or from Mike, for example, during these studies was how to lead through the change and how to explain what's at the end of this journey. And this was very important from my perspective, because leadership, in my opinion, in short, as the summary of this study, is to know the purpose and to show properly this vision of this purpose, which probably will be maybe in 1 year or later, so not very soon. How to engage people and how to show them the proper way and help them to understand why something is happening, and maybe they disagree with this, but as I said, what's the purpose at the end and why they should follow, or if they choose their way, why they should leave right now and change their mindset, their life, and be and agree with their views, or agree with view of the company, which they should understand.
Thank you, Marcin. That was great to mention it, because we are a bit afraid, we are not brave enough to say we are all leaders. Because when we have impact on others, we are all leaders. And doesn't matter if we have the job title, it's not the job title, it's the impact you have on others, the impact we have on the organization, the impact we have on community we live in, the impact we have on a family. I've just learned recently that a family and an organization, they are both complex systems, and we use the same approach, the same thinking to manage or to lead the family and the organization. So thank you for sharing your story. So maybe I jump to Przemek now, and maybe Przemek, you share your view on leadership, but I would like to hear more about values, because we talked a lot about values. When we asked this question, how your values, what's your values first? It's about authentic leadership and how they shape your actions. So, and I know you work for a company. Recently, you were our guest, and you shared your view, or shared how your company use the values. I mean, I can say your company work for, it's a value-driven company, and it's not only aspiration, of course, probably sometimes aspiration, but core values as well. So it's leading by examples. You mentioned as well. I think Raji and other people mentioned it's leading by example. It's walk the talk. So if you can share more on leadership and as well the environment you work for.
Right. Thanks, Gosia. So that's a huge question and interconnected topics, I suppose. So from the introduction perspective, hi, I'm Przemek Kotecki. I'm leading operations team at NetGuru. And my job basically is to make sure that NetGuru is ready for the future, whatever the future brings. So within that question of leadership, I think there were a lot of things already mentioned, right? We heard that purpose and the why is important, that being ready for the digital world and helping people get there is important. Building resilient teams, I would say proactive teams as well, is super important. I've read and researched at one moment in time that there are 3 characteristics of the leader that are also quite important as well, and that would be listening well, motivating others, and those are within the human aspect that we mentioned, but also, and I think Mike mentioned that, right, making right decisions consistently, right? And this is something I think is super interesting, and that goes to the question that you, Gosia, asked as well right now around the values, right? So if I'm thinking that one of the core competencies of the leader is to make the right decisions consistently, this person needs to be able to make those decisions based on specific set of rules, values, beliefs, right? And what are those values is super important, right? So if I were to choose one, I was thinking about it a second ago, if I were to choose one, just one value that I think helps a lot in the leadership, there would be trust, right? So basically as a basis for a number of other of the values that you can have there. You can have transparency, openness, inclusiveness, and so on and so forth, right? But majority of them start with the trust, right? Whether you have the mindset to work with people, to trust them, to think that the systems around you, either complex systems or that are coming from people and interactions, right? That they have the good intentions and that those things can move in the right direction, right? So I would say that's it. And then based on that and connected to leadership, one of the key roles of the leader would be to build positive ecosystems, right? So when I'm thinking about any kind of interaction or the world that we live in, we heard complex system, VUCA word, and so on and so forth, right? So there are a lot of ecosystems that interact with each other, or one huge ecosystem there, right? And one of the roles for the leaders that I see is to acknowledge that, find how we can expand those positive ecosystems within that, and how to make connections. And that will only happen if you build it on the trust principle. Yeah, I think that's my answer here.
Thank you very much, Przemek, mentioning trust here, and other people mentioned as well, because that's the foundation for teamwork. We will not have good results without trust. So it's always when you build a team, you just like ask this question, who are we? If we don't understand, we cannot, if we have trust, we can rely on each other. We commit. So commitment, we deliver what we have promised. We can make mistakes. We are not afraid to make mistakes. So generally, we've got this, and you mentioned, thank you for mentioning this as well. I like the naming for this positive ecosystem. I call it psychological safety. And that's a research done by Google called Aristotle, and there's the top thing when psychological, the most important thing for teams to have this safety. So you feel safe to open up, to be transparent, to say what you think. And another thing just came to my mind, it's about courage, because it's also was mentioned by you, and the definition of courage, which I like. It's from Brené Brown, because courage in English, it comes from cor, from Latin, and it means the heart. So if you are able to tell your story with your full heart, so you don't need to hide anything, that means you have built trust in your team. So do this activity. Okay, so maybe now time, I don't know if Małgosia Kucharska, you are with us, you've just graduated, so it would be really nice to listen to your thoughts, because they are quite fresh. Yes, so thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Gosia Kucharska. I have just graduated from TMA edition 3 yesterday morning, and I've been working for BSH, it's Bosch & Siemens Hausgeräte, for a couple of years now. And for anyone who's hesitant here whether they should take up the course or not, I can just say that I also, like, right after my graduation, got a promotion. So yes, it's worth it. So, okay, so leadership. Actually, I was thinking about it when I heard all my predecessors, and Gosia, when you mentioned courage, that's actually something that I can really relate to, because in my opinion, being brave is something that is crucial for a leader. And for me, it's like being brave to be positive, because I realized and I noticed that many people see this or refer to difficult situations, to this VUCA world, and they really talk a lot about those negative things which are related to that. And I think that we live in times, but probably it has always been like this, that we live in changing times generally, and we will. So we should treat what is happening as something that just happens. So this is our reality, and in the future it will change, new reality will come, but we will need to learn how to deal with what is happening around us. And maybe we should treat it as just treat it in positive terms. So also refer to that in positive terms, not to, okay, maybe I have a different perspective because I also work for a company who has recently dealt pretty well with the current situation. I realized that there is that huge difference in attitudes when I spoke to some of my friends who work for other institutions, and only after talking to them, I realized that, oh my God, this is something really, it can be difficult for others. But I think that, okay, I'm not talking about situations when companies go bankrupt, because this is something that, okay, sometimes there's just no other decision to be made. You just need to close the company, which is like probably the most difficult thing to do in current times. But for anyone else, there is always, it is just opportunity to do something. So to change, to switch to new processes, to improve the processes, to change what is standard. And yeah, so that's why I think that it requires a lot, not to be this kind of a person who just complains and sees difficulties in the entire world around.
Thank you very much. That was great. So be brave, positively brave. Yeah, I like it a lot. And I remember from the stories Mark shared in the article as well, that the hope is very important to have. Even the situation is very dramatic, the situation is very bad. So it's not that everything will be good, but also it's important that there is a hope. So we are here in this very bad situation together, and there is hope we'll manage to recover, or we'll manage to deal with this. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have Hannah on the call with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hannah, I don't know if you are able to switch on your camera, so you will appear. Thank you very much. Just for the sake of speaking. So Hannah is the lecturer as well, and she's teaching the most important subject nowadays, virtual teams. Yeah, that's a very hot topic. Everyone would like to know quickly, learn how to do it. And we know it's not so easy. And if you haven't built trust, if you haven't built relationships so far, the technology will support you, but will not replace the lack of trust or relationships. And Hannah is a graduate of first edition as well. So it's a nice story. We invited her to join our team. So Hannah, your view on the leadership, anything you want to add or share with us?
So maybe just a couple of more words about me. Just like Gosia said, I'm 2-in-1, so I'm both a lecturer and the graduate of Transition Manager Academy. And I can only agree with what you said, but I would like to add one more thing, that what is important from my perspective is just the curiosity. Because I'm a project manager, I'm a researcher, and this is what drives my motivation, and it is what drives my activity. And at Transition Manager Academy, I've met inspiring lecturers. So Gosia, Mike, Przemek, Michał, all the lecturers there, I would like to thank you very much, and my colleagues from my edition and the students for both editions, second and third. I think Gosia, you're the representative here, so thanks a lot, because I've learned a lot from each and every one of you, and this is something crucial for me, so we could listen to one another and learn from that. Okay. So that is the key thing for me, apart from what you've already said.
Thank you very much, Hannah. So for me as well, because we are learning, well, everyone can be our teacher, yeah, that's the most thing. So we've been learning as well from each other, and I've learned as well. And I always have the words in my mind, Mike's word, be curious, be curious. That's the most important leadership quality. So I always repeat it, be curious. Do not assume the sameness. So do not assume you know. Just ask questions. So thank you very much for this. So, okay, so maybe I jump to Raji. Maybe we can go to the specific, because Hannah is teaching virtual team management, but also the multicultural team management. So nowadays we are more global, and we will be more global. Even working virtually, we will have that's the trend. I hope so. We can work from any place in the future, even more, because we can even see like Facebook and other huge companies, Google, they are already, maybe that don't have, some companies, they already have taken the decision to move virtual more, so working from home, so we will be able to join any team in the world. So maybe a bit about culture differences, because it's also very important to understand these differences. So Raji, maybe you can tell us about how Singapore deals with transformations, or maybe there are any specific leadership styles there?
It's completely different as far as I can tell and I can see. So everything I'm going to say right now is how Singapore deals with transformation in leadership. So a transformational leader is one who has charisma as one of the major approaches to influence followers and accomplish daunting goals. But Singapore has a capitalist approach to the outside world and a socialist caring for its people. So continuous upskilling is an actionable and practical way towards the transformational pathway there. So most of the transformations are short cycle. So in Singapore, Singapore's leadership is held to a very high standard of integrity and meritocracy. And this is because Singapore is very well positioned in the crossroads of the trade lanes of Asia, because Singapore's leadership has been a champion of free trade and peace within the region. I say this because Singapore's economic and business growth is linked to its sovereign funds. Not sure how many of you know about this or heard of it, but Temasek Holdings is the sovereign funds, and they hold pretty much every industry in Singapore. For example, energy, infrastructure, banking, aviation, pretty much everything that you can think of. So one of the many things that Singapore does, let me give you just one example. Singapore took a very rapid deployment in research and innovation in becoming a financial hub in Asia. Meaning, I'll just give you a couple of examples. Say in education, one of the largest universities in Singapore is National University of Singapore. So what they did was they tied up with the Ivy Leagues, the Yale, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, and many, many more. But the way they did it was based on the subject matter on hand. That's the way they tie it up. And in my own space, logistics, the transfer of knowledge of port operations, for example, in the Port of Singapore Authority. Now, this knowledge is transferred to Europe, Asia, all over Asia, ASEAN, etc., etc. Now, if you go to manufacturers, now the manufacturing consolidation, now the whole consolidation happens in Singapore and then distributed worldwide. The reason I'm talking about all of this is because the leadership thinks of all of these businesses and universities in a completely different way than others do around the world. And Singapore has consistently taken interest in the world issues and the well-being of its neighbors. So let me jump back to USA for a second, where I'm also a professor. So to Michał's point about how you need to be digitally savvy and, you know, looking through the digital lens, let me tell you something that happened in the university. There's a lot of debates about what should we do. Do we have to go online? Do we have to do face-to-face? Do we have to do half face-to-face or half on Zoom, half on face-to-face while you're in class, blah, 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 all kinds of questions. So the two sides of the coin that was debated was, what if parents ask, why are you bringing the children to the school when you know that they can get infected? The other side of the coin is, why are you not bringing all of these students to the university because we are paying a very high price? Now you got to bring it to, you know, 1/4 of the price. So exactly what Michał says, the digital part of it has got a lot of facets to it that we need to look into. And one of the things that Singapore has done, the culture is the way the culture works is that the whole country is, you know, the transformation has got a lot of dimensions, and the transitionary mode comes in the restructuring of the optimization that happens. So when you talk about, you know, the human race as done blah, blah, blah in the past, and then you think about all the history and you recover and then think of what they've done in the past. So for example, different countries around the world has addressed this short-term isolation that we are going through right now with the COVID in very different ways. And they use a lot of tools and execution plans, but it all depends upon the culture of the people. As Mike said, different people have taken COVID in different ways in different countries, right? So it's very different in a culture where the leadership is a selfless leadership, which means that the sense of purpose is more important than anything else. I hope what I'm saying makes sense to you, because what I'm trying to say is that the disrupted leadership is about strategies and practices, and the, like Shemek said about the ecosystem, that actually needs to bring and offer opportunities to capitalize on the waves of disruption. So let me just share something with you which Singapore did with KPMG, and I think that gives a real good idea about how we can go forward with different cultures. Can you all see what I'm sharing?
Yes.
So this is the 3 R's that KPMG did, and I think that pretty much explains everything. I mean, I'm going to shut this down. I just wanted to show it to you. I mean, it's a huge PDF. Happy to share it with you if you guys want it. But that's what we do in Singapore. And on that note, what I'm going to do is, give me a second, let me just close this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of you, yes, I'm all about questions. So
curiosity.
There we go. There we go.
The top leadership quality.
So in this, we're all addressing a whole lot of current situation as well as what we're going to do in going forward. So when you think about the extracted energy, passion, and commitment of all the fabric of the society that we're talking about, I'd like to hear from others about the next phase in your own world, in your own job, in your own leadership styles, as to how you would satisfy the investors and reinvestors and get the outcome with the energy that you are looking for. Does anyone want to take it up? It was too complicated for too many people. Okay.
No, maybe, yeah, someone will take it. Who would like to take it, the question? Raji, could you repeat the question? You can stop sharing, or you want to share, keep sharing?
No.
So stop sharing, maybe someone from the group, and you just repeat the question.
So basically what I want to know is, what is the outcome that we are looking for with the energy that we are putting in for all of these different kinds of things that we're doing digitally, otherwise, etc., different cultures, etc. If you want me to rephrase this, let me know, or we can go on to another question.
Who would like to answer? Yeah, who would like to start the answer? Any ideas in your mind?
So it's Przemek. So so I'll tell you my vision here from that perspective, and I think that goes very smoothly with the vision of NetGuru. Actually, I think the vision of NetGuru. So I just
you have 7 of them, Shemek, and I love that 7 of them, which actually ties in very. Remember, we had that conversation about Mihal's and my model. Yes.
So I'll go with the vision rather than values here. So our vision, and that goes pretty neatly to what we want to achieve, actually, I think, within the different things of the leadership and where you're heading and so on, is we're aiming for sustainable digital world where everyone can fulfill their potential. Right? And when you think about it, right, when you think about everyone that can fulfill their potential, we want to use the digital part and the sustainable part that has obviously the human factor in it. So that wraps it up quite nicely. So I think that could fit here.
Perfectly. I totally agree with you. And of course, the 7 that NetGuru does, And I had a conversation with your C-levels, and it was amazing that how well it ties up with everything that's going on in the COVID world these days. And I was just going to have a conversation with you later on about, you know, how the COVID came in and the 7, each of them would tie into a different industry as well.
Okay, so maybe someone else would like to answer Raji's question. Any ideas from you? How your energy will be?
I just decided to ask questions because you said it was a debate and I didn't hear any debates. So I said, why not?
But that's great. That's how I wanted to be. I wanted just to start, and then I wanted you to ask questions and participant as well. Please ask, I don't know, Michał, you wanted to ask question because there was a question here. So maybe you can
ask one question, because we said we talked about the trust, curiosity, everything, and then we talk about this VUCA word, that it's like valid for VUCA word, but the question is how was it all different before VUCA word? I mean,
not really.
Which trust or curiosity or I mean, we talk about something. Like 5 years ago, was it different, or 10 years ago?
My question is there anywhere where not before VUCA? I think we always, anytime we can call VUCA, because we just like the change. It's quicker and bigger nowadays. But for people living back, probably they could call their word VUCA as well. So, Mike?
Well, to be honest, I don't think anything's changed. It's always been like this. It's just become harder to ignore it. You know, if you think in the past sort of 10, 20 years, so many projects that run into problems, and they run into problems because people manage them as if they can be planned and they're deterministic, when the reality is the world's always been complex. It's always been fast changing. What's happened is it's just got so fast changing we can't ignore it anymore. We're having to address it and deal with it. So my answer is no, nothing has changed. It's always been like this. We're just more honest about it now.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I agree. We cannot.
I agree too.
Ignore it anymore. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So according, if may I write, according to this, what Mike said, and this question from Michał was very good because. I think that everyone knows people in your companies or your environment that some are always engaged and in the center of the action, and other just follow the procedures or do their job, and that's it. And for some of them, I mean some parts of our organizations, current changes cannot be ignored or avoided easily as it was previously, but a lot of people probably tried to cheat themselves that nothing is changing around them, that there is stable environment and they had tasks to do, and that's every day. And other people, like in project management, we know that even if we plan very carefully and in details whole project, it's impossible to be unchanged until the end. So as Mike said, it's always the same and it's always changing, and through the years and projects we know that even if everything will be prepared, it will change. So for some of the people, current situation, of course, it's more serious, but it's more like every day. It's not so huge impact, except of isolation and distancing.
Michał, I had a question for you since you talked about digital. I read in the Forbes, I think it was a stats that Forbes came out with, that 7 out of 8 digital transformations fail. Is that true? What do you think?
Basically, I don't know. So maybe 7, maybe 10, maybe 1. It depends on the success factors and what is the definition of success within the transformation. So basically, I don't know. But what I can say about this like VUCA world, like before or now, I mean, before the future. So like maybe because I was thinking about how was it all different before, and then maybe there is some difference because in my mind, like since some years, I mean maybe 30 years, but the knowledge-based work progressed a lot. I mean, in the past it was much easier to manage or to lead people who were to do, I mean, physical work. It was much easier to see and judge, or to lead person who was able whose task was to make, I mean, like build a building or construct something like physical. It was much easier to see it, to make something on it, to give a feedback. But now, when this we are in current, like this fourth industrial revolution, and it's kind of the fifth is coming. So I really like what Anna said about the visualization. That like in the knowledge-based work, we really need to see some results, and that this, I mean, digital transformations or technological transformation or something, some knowledge-based work, like when knowledge-based work is taking on, I mean, like it's going to be like this competitive advantage. So this, to see the results, to see the actions through the digital lenses, this is going to be kind of a challenge. And for me, this is the difference. Before VUCA world and now it's, and then especially now, this is huge difference. So Raji, I don't have an answer. I mean, I'm not making statistics about the digital transformations. I know that it must happen, and the most like digital transformations are about humans. I mean, how we change our way of working, how we changing our way of leading, and this, and maybe based on it, yeah, we like 70 or 80% we fail. This, yeah, it's easy to introduce some tools. It's much more difficult to, for example, build a trust through digital lenses.
I just asked Miha because he talked about digital, but if anyone else is in that world, and if you want to answer, please go ahead. But I don't know where you work and what you do, so I didn't mean to point on Miha alone.
No worries.
So
I can comment on that.
oh, okay, thank you.
I think it's a lot of companies are struggling with digital transformation. I think that's the right word. So while
I totally agree.
And so I'm not sure if we're able to say that they're failing, because that's probably a continuous process, and they're trying and testing different things, and some of them are okay and work fine, some of them definitely not. I think right now there is, if you go to the very base of that, there's even no clear consensus on what does the digital transformation mean right now in the world, right? So for everyone, it means something a little bit different. Yeah. So then you can be very successful, or you may not be that much successful, depending how you look at it. But if you assume that whatever those companies want to achieve, right, is the actual digital transformation that is okay for them, then I think still a lot of them are struggling. But what I also see is that there is a lot of will to make it work, right? So I think, especially, maybe always, right, but especially with the recent changes, not only companies, but also all the people working within those companies, so that it is inevitable that the digitalization will progress, right? And that right now they want to understand it because they want to be on board, rather than only wait for what will be happening, because I think that majority of people that did not think about it before, right now understood that yes, it will come and they will be a part of it. So now they may be on the right side of the things, so to speak, to move forward with it. So that's my comment here.
Thank you, Shemek.
Maybe I can add something as well. I think I agree what Michał said. It's human side and transformation, but we need both. And I think we focus more on the product, on the process, on the transformation, and we miss people. That's what we teach as well. The Bridges model, it's the transition. So in the change in people's mind. And because the changes happen so quickly now, so the human beings, our mind, it takes longer for us to change our beliefs. And that's what we question all the time. I've just learned to question. Mike always asks, is it a fact or your belief? And then mostly it's a belief, yeah? And then my next question is, does this belief support me? If not, the answer maybe yes, maybe not. So maybe it's worth changing it, yeah? Seeing the curiosity, find out from different perspective. So that's a transition, the transformation, I mean, the change starts from the goal, from the results we want to achieve. And as Michał said, it's very important to see it. And the transition, the psychological change in our minds starts where the people are. Just map the people in the process, because leaders might be in front. We already might be in the neutral zone or in the new beginning, yeah? But some people might not even enter the transition because they still, and even now, a lot of people really reject the existence of the virus. So they are not even ending anything. They are not able to enter the ending phase. Yeah. So that's very important to put more focus on people. And another thing I would like to add just came to my mind. There is Lucia Adams. She works with innovations. So it's worth to listen to her TEDx, to her videos. And she's saying, because we think 90% it's a solution, it's a process, and 10% it's people, the attitude. And she's saying it's not proven by the research. It's more probably a belief. But I agree, it doesn't matter if it's 10, 90, but she's saying 90% it's the attitude of people involved. So it's the clients, it's the users, the team, the organization, all people involved. The attitude of them is the most important. So start with the attitude, start with building this positive. I've got in my notes, Przemek said, the positive ecosystem, I call it psychological safety, and then people, and help people, support people to move through this transition. That's how I see the challenge we have now.
But I also see this challenge as an opportunity, because as you said, it's the matter of mindset. So some of the companies and some of the people right now cannot avoid this thinking that something is happening. So instead of being preparing in the past for something in the future, or for new trends or new situations which may happen, and trying to foresee them, they were avoiding this in the future, in the past. But right now, they see that, okay, I cannot do this anymore, and it's start of the new process of the transformation, which should be applied. And I think it may be more beneficial than critical situation, even if it's not good for many people and companies.
Thank you, Marcin. So, yeah, anyone to add? Anya?
Maybe I would just add one thing that to what Marcin and others said, that this situation just pushes us to develop, to grow, and to just, even if we don't like being online or running, for example, workshops, online workshops, we are forced to do it, and as we do it once, twice, or for the third time, it becomes better and better, and we even start liking it. So I think that we have to be open-minded and just take what the life brings us, take and try to cope with it with a smile on our face, with a positive thinking. And even if we fail, just try again and again, and just do not give up. And we don't know what will happen next. So I believe that everything is happening for a reason. So it's also the situation that with COVID is for that. Maybe we don't know the reason yet, but I think we soon will, and I think it. I believe it will be something good, and it is worth to just to fight for a little while with those difficulties that came up to us. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. So maybe I just would like to summarize. Maybe we can, everyone who wants, anyone can think about any lessons we can learn from the situation we are now, from COVID. So companies or we individually can learn for the future.
Yeah.
On this?
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay, thank you.
As it was said a few seconds ago, companies should be open-minded. I have some examples from the businesses. Probably you know that many companies didn't allow people to stay at home and work remotely, or just work remotely from anywhere, and it wasn't really very welcome. Right now, they were forced to do this, and it wasn't so bad probably for them. It was also the matter of trust, which should be built, mentioned by Przemek. And exactly from the businesses, a couple of months ago, I spoke with various people, or even for the last 2 years in logistics, for example, about deliveries with drones. And some people see it as kind of undefined future, which probably won't happen in next months or years. How drone will deliver parcel to my house or to my office. It won't happen. Maybe it won't happen in my country, for example. And the same was with automation of production. Why should we invest in robots? Why we should have reduced our staff and trust and invest in automation? Right now, companies which did it months ago, they won because they had less HR related issues, for example, probably. And right now they are thinking about switching production to into automation, because if something like this happen again, they will need deal with much more issues because of.
Let me ask you, you said that we have to take what we have learned right now and go ahead and use it later on. So how would you sustain that impact? So the reason I asked this question is because this is a huge question that's in Singapore. It's a big, big topic. How do you sustain the impact that you've already achieved? And the two things that I'm going to give you, but then I'm going to open the floor to everybody else, is the two things that I have found in the industries that I've worked with is that, A, to get enterprise leaders, 2, to get technocrats as leaders. That's what has helped in my industries. And I'm just going to open the floor to the rest of you.
Anyone? Mike?
Give me a moment and I'll come back in a second.
Okay. So maybe
hit you hard,
else?
Didn't I, Mike?
Anyone else? And please, if you have any questions, the audience, just paste them to the chat, and we still have a few minutes to answer them. And then,
I would like to add that very often leaders or companies which act as leaders are we like them because we see that they achieved something significant, and we like their performance. But at the same time, when it comes to mindset and to preparation for something new, to be creative, we don't do the same. And it's like following the trends. We see the trend, which is very good, and we see, okay, there is a business which we could do. But when we start to follow it, it's too late. We should be open-minded, we should be creative, and we should foresee uncertain situations to be ready for them, or even more, to be ready to get the benefit from them when they happen, or maybe even to create them. Of course, if it would be the positive situation, not like create COVID pandemic, for example.
Thank you. Anyone else to add to answer Raji's question, or maybe any thoughts from the lesson learned?
I'm waiting for Mike.
When Martin mentioned
you've asked us to wait, yes.
when Martin mentioned the drones, it reminded me who could imagine Easter breakfast using Zoom? And we had it, yeah. It's just like I was reading about there was like a Samsung report that was it was done in 2016. That was how the world would look like in 100 years, yeah. And then the most they asked 2,000 people from UK, and the most probably was using the virtual world, like the avatars and holograms and all this type. And they were explaining that family events will be run through the technology. And then 2,000, they asked 2,000 people in UK, and 40 or almost 50% answered that the first one will be the virtual reality. Yeah, and we just waited for 4 years to experience it. So I've got recording. I've got our breakfast was done by Zoom. So 4 years on
our breakfast.
So yeah. It's that thing about curiosity again. I remember, oh gosh, how long ago? 15 years ago. I was working. We were doing field force mobile solutions rollout, and I worked for an electricity utility. So a lot of the places we were rolling out to were in remote areas of the countryside with not very great comms. And we used to talk about what was possible and what wasn't possible. And I always used to ask the question, think about what you would do if you had completely unlimited communications to this site. What would you do? What information would you receive? How would you operate the system? Because it's coming. I don't know if it's 5 years away or 10 years away or 20 years away, but it's going to happen. So start asking yourself the impossible questions. You know, it's not around what technology, but if I could have any information I want at any time in my hand, what would I do? I used to read science fiction when I was a teenager. Isaac Asimov, and he would write about. He had this thing called multivac, which the world had 4 massive computers, and everyone had a little handheld terminal, and wherever they went, they had in their hands access to all of the world's knowledge. And this is in the 1960s, and I'm reading this and thinking, well, that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen, is it? But there we are. We're in the future. You know, we have now. What I didn't know is that when we have all this knowledge, what we're going to do with it is look at cats playing keyboards. But that's the thing. So you can imagine the technology, but you can't imagine what people are going to do with it, because they'll find things you never thought of. And the final question I have is that. Big fan of Back to the Future, and I really want to know where's my hoverboard. I'm still waiting for it. So 2015 we should have had our hoverboards now. I want my hoverboards. So get working on it, somebody.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Any questions from the audience or any thoughts? The last thoughts, because I would like to finish the streaming on Facebook and stay a little bit more, so maybe people from audience can join us and they can ask a specific question regarding the studies. We've got 1 more day for the discount, so if anyone would like to join our journey, the next journey, the next step, it's called TMA 4. We've just started. We've got already a few people in the group, and we are waiting for more for open-minded leaders. As Martin mentioned, open-mindedness, maybe something else for curious leaders. That's what we've mentioned. For brave leaders, yeah, that's what I remember from our discussion. So any other thoughts?
One thought from me, if you don't mind. I just, about this curiosity, it is a very important thing for me, because it switches off the fear. Because if we are curious, what will happen? What's gonna be now? It's like it's automation. The fear, it just disappears, and let's not let this fear inside us. Let's not panic and let's not keep it inside. Even if we feel the fear, just breathe in, breathe out, and start being curious and trust that fear will not help us at all. So this is something what I would like to say from myself for the end of this part of our meeting. Curiosity, not fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. It's a nice summary. So ask yourself what happened if you're afraid of, for example, losing job. What happened? Okay, I lose my job. Okay, so if I lose a job, what happened next? So I might actually get rid of our house I live, or just like I've got the mortgage or whatever. So what else? What happened? I will leave. I don't know. I will become homeless or leave just next to it. But how many people do you know living like that? Yeah, that's the question. How many people? Or maybe, maybe it's not. Probability, yeah, it's not so huge. Yeah, so it's worth asking questions. Anyone else to add anything? Okay, so in the end, I will invite everyone who would like to practice the visual thinking for tomorrow. One more thought from Mike Griffiths. There's a quite interesting article we can share, and he is saying, that's what Michał said as well, that we cannot solve what we cannot measure. But he's saying, and I agree, we cannot really solve if we cannot see it. Yeah, so it's good to at least to use your imagination and to try to draw it. Yeah, so tomorrow we will try to solve complex problems using drawings. I mean, just as a support.
Yes.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for, that was quite 2 hours now, yeah, so for our discussion. And the discussion has been recorded, so you can listen it again, you can share with others as well. So thank you very much. Michał is clapping. So I will stop the streaming on Facebook. So thank you very much everyone who is on Facebook, and do not disconnect yet from Zoom, because we will have a chance to ask more questions regarding the GMA. Yes, so thank you very much. That was a pleasure to have you here, and that was, for me, was really inspiring, exciting discussion. And I'm missing this discussion because all conferences were cancelled in the spring, so I really miss you a lot. Let me stop this.